Hello everyone, this is MC Deck Discussions and I'm OhBSmall, and today we have another deck discussion. This is the deck that I used to play against, I think it was Mutagen Formula, right? Let me scroll down. Yes, against Mutagen Formula, Green Goblin. And this deck, I did 4 practice games. The first 2 games I won, and I seemed to have pretty good control over it, even though there were quite a few times in those games where I would be down to 1 or 2 points. That was a regular occurrence in my games, is that I would get down to 1 or 2 points, absorbing damage regularly, and then flipping down to heal back up. And that seemed to work pretty well. But in the third game, I made it through. Let's see, I had 17 cards left in my deck. I lost. I had 17 cards left in my deck. And, plus another 6, so I had like half of the cards that I didn't even get through. And every single game up to that point. So all 4 of my practice games, Web of Life and Destiny did not show up until the last hand. And so I made some changes at the end. So let me go ahead and show you what this deck is. And as I go through, I'll scroll down too and mention the changes that I made. Before I do, I'll have timestamps as usual if you want to skip anything here. But I want to mention again, so this is Season 2 of the Limited Environment Draft Tournament, that these are the content creators that are in the same pod that I'm in. So there are 4 of us competing. And I saw today, I was watching a video at the time I'm recording this, by Facing the Encounter, and there was somebody there I saw in the chat mention that they couldn't find people's drafts. And so I wanted to point out that my draft picks are right here, but I decided to include in this deck description, and I usually copy each of these deck descriptions and just put it in the next one. So I'll try to, so I should be including this link each time. So what I included right here is not only my draft picks, but for those who are interested and missed it, you can click on the link in this deck description and go right to my video that showed, my draft picks and, my thinking that was going on with that. So if you're interested, you can take a look at that. All right. So let's get going with the actual deck discussion now. So for the allies, as you can see here, I have Ghost Spider and Nick Fury. So Nick Fury was the one that I ended up adding in to get some extra consistency in the deck, and it did feel like it made a difference. So then I had my third game was a loss. My fourth game, I went back to winning, but Nick Fury did help with that little bit of card draw, because unlike most Web Warrior, unlike most Web Warrior type of decks, this deck isn't meant to have a lot of card draw. And so just getting that bit of card draw from Nick Fury helped to set things up, him just showing up periodically. And that made a bit of a difference to feel like the deck could be more consistent. And I did finally get the Web of Life and Destiny in play earlier in the game, not maybe halfway through my deck, I think, but at least earlier than the last hand from the deck. So that was pretty nice in the game that I recorded. That finally happened, but it just felt more solid, and I had made some other changes too that I'll talk about as we go. All right, Ghost Spider is in the deck for the usual reason you put him in these Web Warrior decks, right? So when he leaves play, or she leaves play, you search your deck for an identity-specific event and add it to your hand. So that can be really helpful to getting, whatever card that you need from his events. I think during the video, I ended up getting Petulant Pig for some more card draw, but you could ham it up to get some more threat removal. Hogwashed is a really nice card to be able to, if there's a side scheme or a hefty minion out there, to help get rid of that, and swing Web Pig to help deal some more damage. So Ghost Spider is really handy for that. Scarlet Spider is a tremendous card for a tremendous ally for being able to keep what the allies in play that you want to have in play. So when another web warrior character would take any amount of damage, Scarlet Spider takes that damage instead. But Scarlet Spider can also serve in an emergency situation to help preserve Spider-Ham. You know, if Spider-Ham's going to die, then Scarlet Spider can help prevent that. And I have a couple of other cards that help prevent that as well that I'll get to later on in the upgrades. But in particular, Scarlet Spider is meant to especially help, let's see, who is it? There we go, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and keep him in play, though there could be reasons why it might be useful for Spider UK depending upon what you're doing in a particular game. But it's the main thing is really to keep Spider-Man, Peter Parker, help keep him in play indefinitely. And then we have Silk, really handy here because Green Goblin in the Mutagen formula, he has a whole bunch of those treacheries, right? So Silk lets you play from, after you play Silk from your hand, if you control another web warrior card, you can search the encounter deck for a treachery card and discard it. And Green Goblin has a ton of treacheries that allow him to attack or scheme again, and that can get pretty overwhelming. So it's really nice getting Silk, just periodically into play and getting rid of that. Hopefully I only used it when I played from my hand. I seem to remember playing her from my discard pile once and possibly using her ability then when I shouldn't have. Hopefully I didn't do that in the game that was recorded, but I seem to remember doing that once, and I can see here that I'm not allowed to do that. And then we have Spider Penny Parker. In the game that I played, I don't know that I think I played her once, but I didn't use her for her best ability. But I think of the 5 games I played, I only used her once in the way that, when she's most effective, where you get her to add to your hand if she was defeated by taking excess consequential damage. So you come out your first turn, you let her attack once, and then on your next turn, you let her thwart, and then she comes back to your hand. And then if you have Web of Life and Destiny in play, you also draw a card, and just do that over and over again. So I did have one game where I did that maybe 2 or 3 times, but for the most part, I didn't really use her much that way, but she was always available to be used that way, and it's really nice when you can. Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now this one I know I remembered to only use his ability when I played him from my hand. And that's after you do play him from your hand, you stun and confuse an enemy if you control at least 3 Web Warrior cards. And as long as you have Web of Life and Destiny in play, and you're on your hero side for Spider-Ham, then you will meet Miles Morales' requirement, and it's really nice stunning and confusing Green Goblin, keeping him from activating. All right, and then Spider-Man Peter Parker, he has this response: after Spider-Man attacks or thwarts, choose another Web Warrior character, ready that character. So that gives you a chance to ready Spider-Ham multiple times, so because he can ready himself already if he has organic webbing in play and you're regularly getting tune counters. And in this game, I got tune counters quite a bit, and every time I played against Green Goblin, I had a bunch of tune counters, more than I usually get, because of all the minions there are that are attacking for just 1 damage. So I'll let 1 or 2 of those stay out and play, and continue to get those tune counters put on him, right? So for those who may not know, if you look at his ability here, right? So each tune counter on Spider-Ham can be spent as if it were a wild resource. And then Spider Nonsense has this response: after Spider-Ham takes any amount of damage, place 1 tune counter on him. And it doesn't have to be from an attack, it's just any amount of damage at all. And you'll see that come into play for another card in the upgrades as well. And then Spider UK. So one of the interesting things about using Spider UK in this deck is, in a lot of decks that I've used Spider UK in the past, I want Spider UK staying in play a lot and using his ability a lot. And I found that he would get in play maybe once a game, and I'd use him a little bit, but I didn't use him as much as I usually did, because I wanted when using Spider-Ham, I wanted a lot of the minions to stay in play. would have been convenient to have him in play earlier in a lot of the games, just because I would be able to, once I get the whole kit set up, so we have enough Web Warrior cards in play, then he can just defeat anybody I want him to. And I didn't really have him available for that during the gameplay that I recorded. And it didn't really happen in any of the games, and even in one where I got him in there early, I didn't really want to use him very much. So, he never came to be used the way he could have maximally been used in the deck. But he was, but no matter what, he always has a lot of value. And he has this interrupt: when Spider UK defends against an attack, deal damage to the attacking enemy equal to the number of Web Warrior cards you control. So if you set things up correctly, you can make sure that he never receives any damage, because this is an interrupt. So it interrupts the attack of the minion. Typically, you want to use it against minions. It interrupts the attack of the minion, deals that damage first. And so if you defeat the minion, then they don't ever hit Spider UK, and he takes no damage. So I pretty much ended up using him. Maybe I'd use him once a game where he defends like that and defeats something. And instead, I would just attack with him a little bit as well, just to have him contribute to some damage against the villain typically. But he can have some great value, and even against Green Goblin, there was the possibility that he could have been used a whole bunch of times and just stayed in the game most of the game if I got him out early and keep the minions under control. Because the one game I did lose, before I put Nick Fury and made some other changes to the deck, the one game I did lose, I could have really used having Spider UK out there, because I just got completely overrun with minions, and then the main scheme just got out of control as well, because when Green Goblin attacks and deals damage to you, he also puts more threat on the main scheme as well. So that game that I lost, that would have been great if I had him out there. If I had enough of the kit built out too. Right, because you want the Web of Life and Destiny as one of these Web Warrior cards, and then you have a couple of allies, and then Spider UK can deal a lot of damage. All right, and then for the events, now this is something that did change a fair amount. So in my first couple of games, I always had Across the Spider-Verse in, but what changed was eventually I put Jump Flip in after my last playtest. Originally, I really had wanted to use, and I did use it, it worked great in the first two games. Where is it? Thwip Thwip. Okay, so Thwip Thwip is a 2-cost event. Hero action, deal 1 damage to whatever character you control. So that was really nice. I could deal 1 damage to Spider-Ham and get another tune counter on him, and then place a total of 2 stun status cards on up to 2 enemies. And it did work well, but it didn't help me make progress that way I wanted to make, and it didn't really help me with the defense that I wanted to do. I could allow my allies to defend against Green Goblin if I had enough of them, and I do, right? I have plenty of allies out there, and if we have and if I don't also happen to have Cartoon Physics out, right? So because Cartoon Physics is that upgrade card, you put it out and you play for 1 cost, and then when your identity would take any amount of damage, you discard the card, and you're able to prevent all but 1 of that damage. So that's great against the villain as well, but you don't always have it out in play, so the allies can take a bunch of those hits too. But I also wanted the allies to be able to help with the thwarting and help with attacking. And Jump Flip ended up being a nice addition at the end. And you need if you use a wild resource, which is easy to do because Spider-Ham had his wild resources available from his own ability, then you could meet this requirement for the energy resource. So when you would take any amount of damage, you prevent 2 of that damage. So that could work well. The villain attacks you and deals 3-4 damage. You can prevent a couple of points of that damage, so you don't take a whole bunch. And then you used an energy resource to play it. It only costs 1. And you remove 2 threat from the main scheme, help to keep that under control so that Green Goblin's ability doesn't, do too much, get that main scheme too far ahead of you. So this was a nice addition. I didn't want too many of them, but a couple of them in the deck served a nice purpose. Then for the player side schemes, that was another change I made too. Originally, I also had build support, and that worked well. Helped to get these cards out, some of these other cards out. But I had 43 cards most of the time, and I really just wanted to thin it down to 42. There's something about 42 cards that feels so much better to me than 43. I don't know what it is, but it just does. I have 42 cards. I usually feel pretty comfortable with decks that have 42 cards, but 43 always feels like it's just a little too much to me. So I took that out, and it certainly seemed to work well in this game, and I didn't really feel the need to have build support in play. Although it would have been nice to have used it to get Web of Life and Destiny out sooner. But Superpower Training is really handy for getting organic webbing in, which I consider to be the most important card to get into play. And then if that one's already in play, the most important upgrade to get into play so that you can ready Spider Ham regularly in the beginning to do extra thwarting, and then later on when you get Huge Wooden Hammer into play, you can also deal some extra attacking as well. And if Superpower Training, if Organic Webbing is already in play, then I would shoot for Huge Wooden Hammer. But actually in the game that was recorded, both of those were in play. And at first I thought it was a wasted play to use Superpower Training, but I did use it to get Cartoon Physics back into play from my discard pile, and that ended up being pretty handy in that case too. So not the best usage of it, I don't think, but still works well. And then for the resources, we had 3 doubles and 2 copies of the Power of Protection. We have a nice number of cards here for the Power of Protection to be used on with Scarlet Spider, Silk, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, and Spider UK. So that's 4 usages there. And then those were really the only main ones, but also there were wild resources, and those wild resources served to help with those few cards when having any kind of particular resource you need. It was then available. So I never felt like it was a waste. Even I think in the recorded game, I don't know if I ever used it in a way that, on any of these allies here, and in fact, I originally had the Power of Protection in the deck because I also had, 3 copies of that other card that I removed that was a 2-cost card. So I kind of forgot about that, which was Thwip. So I suppose it would have been, I really actually could have removed the Power of Protection. Oh, I think I did use it to play Miles Morales, though, so that was helpful. And he is a 4-cost card, so that could be useful. But in any case, it seemed to work well still, keeping it in. But I could see if somebody wanted to remove a couple of cards, those would be pretty useful, and then we'd have a nice streamlined 40-card deck. And then for the supports, we have Helicarrier. Team Building Exercise. Originally, I had 2 of these in I think for the first couple of games. But then after losing the 3rd game, that's when I removed, or it might have even been before that, actually. If I look, I'm not going to bother looking in my notes, but it might have been before that, where I just realized I didn't really need the second one. I ended up having times when I just wasn't using one of the cards as a resource, and I figured I could, streamline the deck a little bit more by removing one of those copies. And then of course Web of Life and Destiny. So that whenever I do lose one of my Web Warrior allies, I could draw a card. And then, so these were really cool cards to have in the deck. Energy Shield, I'm going to come back to those. So one of the reasons why I wanted to, so originally I only planned on using Spider-Ham against 1 villain, but I really wanted to be able to get, I had not played Spider-Ham since Ready for a Fight had been introduced into the game. And so I really wanted a chance to use Ready for a Fight with Spider-Ham so I could go down to Alter Ego more regularly. And I did find I got to go down to Alter Ego quite a bit. A lot of times I would get 1 Ready for a Fight out in play, and it would stay in play for a really long time. In fact, in the recording, that was the case. But it was still nice having 3 of them available so that I could get one out relatively early, and then I would feel safe going down to Alter Ego whenever I wanted to, or most of the time when I wanted to. And then Spider Tingle, just a fantastic card. I want to remember to hit Energy Shield. I'm saying that out loud so I remember to go back to it. But Spider Tingle is such a cool card. You notice it's interrupt, so you can actually use it in your Alter Ego side. It's just not as useful in your Alter Ego side with Spider-Ham, but it has this superpower. It's a superpower card, 1 cost, upgrade, interrupt. When you would reveal an encounter card, deal 1 damage to a web warrior character you control. And of course, if you're in hero form, that's awesome because it just contributes to Spider-Ham's ability to get more tune counters on him as wild resources. Okay, and then if that card is a treachery, you cancel its when revealed effect and discard Spider Tingle. So really nice. If it isn't a treachery, you just keep using it again and again and again, which for most heroes, that's probably a bad thing. But when you have Spider-Ham, that ends up being a good thing for continuing to, get that 1 damage and get those extra tune counters on him. So it's a really cool card. I included 2 of those. I was tempted after every single game. I was tempted to put a 3rd one in there, but I'm always concerned about that clogging up of my hand, so I decided to just go with 2. But it was tempting to put a 3rd one in there for sure. And then lastly, Energy Shield. So this is the card that's meant to be the one that allows Spider-Man Peter Parker to stay in play the whole game, but also can serve as an emergency for Spider-Ham. So I did use it. I did have games where I had 1 copy on Spider-Ham and 1 copy on Peter Parker. And when Peter Parker would attack, and he already had 2 damage. So I think every single game that I had, once I put Peter Parker in play, I never once discarded him, not a single time. So either he would be protected by Scarlet Spider, taking damage for him for his consequential damage, or I would have an Energy Shield out there taking damage, preventing that damage instead, right? So it has this interrupt. When attached character would take any amount of damage, spend X energy resources, prevent X of that damage. So I would have, those wild resources that are on Spider-Ham just constantly available for this. So I was able to continually protect Spider-Man, Peter Parker, and allow him to stay into play the entire game. So I'm pretty sure every single game he stayed in play that whole time. And then, but I did find times when it was useful to protect Spider-Ham here and there with it too. So having 2 copies served 2 purposes. So the first one is that I could get it on, once Spider-Man Peter Parker was in play, I could get one out there relatively quickly on him, and Scarlet Spider served as that 3rd possibility of getting, if one of these energy shields hadn't shown up yet, then I could get Scarlet Spider into play. And I even had a time when I used Across the Spider-Verse to get Scarlet Spider into play until I could get that energy shield available. So having 2 energy shields was really nice for the main purpose of getting it on Spider-Man Peter Parker as early as possible, but secondarily to use on Spider-Ham in case of an emergency. Because like I said, I got him down to 1 or 2 points of damage quite a few times. And just having that, what if this fluke damage comes out of nowhere? Then I have something to protect him with. I generally tried to avoid using it, but having it on him in a case of emergencies served a great purpose. And anytime you had that treachery, right, it's one of the standard treachery cards that makes, I can't remember what it's called right now. I'll go look it up in a sec, but it tells you, discard a support or an upgrade. And if you don't, then the card surges. Energy Shield is perfect for that. So it's great having that out there to be able to discard it. And if you have 2 of them, you know that you're going to get another one soon enough. Let me look that card up real quickly to end this video, so you can see what card I'm talking about in case you're not familiar with it. All right, so I went to Marvel CDB to find it. So here are the standard cards here, and it is Caught Off Guard, right? So when revealed, discard an upgrade or support you control. And then if no cards were discarded this way, this card gains search. So that's the one that I meant. And so having that 0 cost upgrade out in play is a really nice one to help to allow Caught Off Guard to just fizzle out. All right, and to finish off, just a quick reminder, be sure to check out other people's gameplay and other videos they're creating. And we have 2 teams of us here listed here, so you can check that out in the deck when you click on, if you click on the deck link in the description of this video. And then if you're curious about how the scoring works, all of that is listed here as well, and plus these extra details too. Okay, and then you can see some of my playtesting notes if you want. Alrighty, that's it. Hope you have a good one. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I enjoy having conversations with people in the comment section if you wish to comment. Have a great one, everybody.